Today's lab is going to be dealing with vertical profiles. We're going to be generating a design profile and a profile view, so we'll be explaining that. But one thing to understand, it's a much of a linear process in Civil 3D, so you have to have certain aspects developed. One will be the surface. That's very, very important to the whole process. Secondarily, we have to have a horizontal design alignment. And once we do that, then we can generate the vertical. And these things will be linked, so a change in one will drive a change in the other, and that is one of the real powerful aspects of Civil 3D. The first thing we're going to do is go to the Settings tab, and we're going to navigate to the Ambient Settings. And what I want to do is change the angle, because I do have angles that I'm going to be dealing with, and want to make sure they're coming in correctly. Format right now is set to decimal. I've got mine in degrees, minutes, seconds. So we're going to apply that and go back to our prospector. So we're going to generate a surface using the same little file that we had used in the last lab. I have shifted it a little bit, so you want to make sure that you use the proper one. It's going to be called Lab 6. So I'm going to go to the Insert command, typing in I, and browsing out. Hopefully you have it located somewhere. We're going to go Lab 6, DWG, open that. Make sure that you don't have any of the insertion, scale, or rotations checked. And I would not explode it right now. Let's just go ahead and OK that. It should come in. You'll probably have to do a zoom extents to see it. There it is. And you can see that this is a block. If I select that, we have the block. So I'm going to go ahead and explode that, assuming that's come in properly. And from this, we're going to build our surface. So what we're going to do first is create point groups out of these points here. So these points don't exist as points, as we explained last time. These are from an older version, Sofdesk. So we're going to go to the Points menu on the Home tab, replace Sofdesk point blocks, and you can select, converts them over. So let's go ahead and create a point group for these. So we'll go over to Points, New Point Group, and I'm going to call this point group Topo for our topographic points. Using a basic style, point number elevation description is fine. What we're going to do is include point numbers matching 1 through, I believe there's 15, so we'll go ahead and hit that. It's 20, grab my point list, and yes, it's 15. So we'll apply that, OK that, and you can now see that you have points in there. And this is a very nice and convenient way of establishing points for topographic surfaces. So we're going to go now to our surface, and we notice that we do not have a surface. So we're going to create a surface, and I'm going to call my surface existing ground. Okay, that. Open up my surface categories. There's my existing ground. Go to definition, and we don't really have anything here defining it. So what we're going to do is define it by points. Point group, add. Notice I have 2 point groups I could add here. I'm going to add the topo, apply that, OK that. And the minute I do that, you notice I do have a surface right now, and there's its boundary right there, that little green line. So we're going to now incorporate our contours into that. Give it a description if you like. Remember, we talked about weeding factors last time. I don't want to delete polyline vertexes, so I'm going to 0 distance, and I'm going to 0 the angle out. Not worry about supplemental factors, just OK that. Select everything in the drawing, and now I have one surface that includes both types of data. So again, remember, if we're converting or creating surfaces from contours, you always want to check, visually look at that. I'm zooming in, I can see there's really no difference between the two. Also want to make sure that I do have a ridge. So what I'm going to do is just click on my surface. I'm going to right click. I want to look at my surface properties, And I'm going to change that to 1 foot and 5 foot design. And the nice thing about that is I can now see that my ridge, yes, is definitely developed through there. Okay. We also have some surface possibly irregularities right down here because remember the triangulation is going to triangulate outside of a normal boundary. So I can edit my boundary, or I can also edit triangles. So what I'm going to do is just a real quick edit. Click my surface. I have to bring triangles on to actually do this. So I'm going to go to that piece there, display, turn my triangles on, and you can see we have this group of triangles here that are probably erroneous. Typically, the long skinny ones, remember, are not going to be good. So I'm going to click my surface, go to my edit surface, and what I'm going to do is delete lines, and I can do that with a crossing, take them out, and if there's any other spots that look like they need cleaning up, like that could use a little bit of cleanup probably. Adds that in. Okay, so we're good with our surface. We can escape out of there. I'm going to get rid of the triangles. They're going to kind of be really a little bit too much, so I'm going to go ahead and click that surface props, go back to here, turn my triangles off. I'm actually going to just go ahead and toggle off my border. I don't really need to see that either. Apply that, and there you have your surface. If points are in your way, we could create a blank point group and handle that. That would be one way of dealing with that. So the next thing we're going to do now that we have a good surface, and remember we could go out and look at some of the visualization on that, but we're going to go ahead and generate our a tangent data, and you have a Lab 6.8 schematic layout sheet. Let's go look at that. If you notice, we're starting at a point, northing and easting, and we're going to travel along an alignment defining 3 tangents, and then ultimately we're going to come back in and put some curve data in there. So I'm going to go here and create a line by bearing, because that's my first piece of information. And what I have is a northing and easting value. So what I'm going to do is use a transparent command over here. That's pretty nice. You'll find one over here called northing and easting. Should be prompting you for a northing value. So we're going to enter that, 6428. And our easting is 3246. Escape out of there, and you'll notice that now you're sitting right where you want to be. So we're now into the bearing distance mode. So our first line, our tangent, is a northeast, so that's a quadrant 1. Our bearing is 72, 57, 27, and our distance is 787.15. Okay, hit the escape twice, get out of there, and you should have your tangent across your line, just like you see here, or your surface rather. And at this point now, we're going to attach tangent 2 utilizing a distance and a deflection angle. So we're going to go into our line section again. We're going to do a create line by deflection. Here we have to pick points, so if you don't have your O-snap end on, you might want to go ahead and turn that on and put your first endpoint where your instrument's going to sit and your second where your backside is. And that didn't work, which happens very often, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of there, try it again. Got to be really careful, and probably because I had to turn my O-snaps on, it kind of didn't work right. So what I'm going to do is go back into deflection, instrument. I know what's happening. What will very often happen when you have running O-snaps, such as I do here, they're going to take over. So let's see what our settings are doing. And I have several ones. I think I'm just going to turn them off for now, and I'm going to do them manually. Let's see if that works better. So again, I'm going to go back into that by deflection. I'm going to hit a shift and a right click, target the endpoint, and then shift and right click, target the endpoint. So it's kind of good to see a mistake like that. But notice my instrument is set up there, and my backside's there. That's what you're looking for. So now we're going to be turning our angle clockwise. That's a positive deflection, 50.5605, and my distance is 1096.72. And notice it does increment me up, puts my instrument at my new endpoint's position, and it backsights where my instrument was, which is exactly what I want. So I'm going to turn my next deflection. Now this is a left deflection, so we're going to do a negative 30, 43, 49, and our distance will be 1008. Enter, and then you can escape. And so now what you have in place is your line work ready to establish a alignment. So what we're going to go now to do is generate an alignment. So we're going to create alignment from objects, and I'm going to select my first line, my second line, and my third line. Make sure that the direction is left to right. If that's good, accept it. If not, reverse it. And this is our alignment, which we can change the name. I'm not going to worry about it, so it'll probably call it alignment 1. We definitely want to make this a centerline line type, and my starting station will be 0, 0. We're not going to associate this with a site. This will be proposed, and I'm going to go ahead and let it label. I'm not going to add curves right now. We're going to do that later. We're just slightly different than we've done in the past, and then we're going to hit OK. So what we're looking at is our baseline alignment, and you can see those are PI points prior to curves being inserted. So now what we're going to do is going to go and click on this alignment, and what we're going to do is go to the geometry editor, and you have a lot of tools up here, and we've talked about a little bit in the past. They're worth really exploring more if you get into Civil 3D, but we're going to do this one right here, this curve one, and we're looking for what is called fit curve between two entities. And this is kind of like the fillet. Select your first entity in, your second entity, and it wants to know whether your delta angle is greater than or less than 180. This is definitely less than 180. And then you have choices of how you want to design it. One of the things in this one, it's pretty much assuming a highway degree of curve, which is what we're using. So if you're doing a railroad, you have to do this a different method. So we're going to choose D for degree of curve, and we're going to tell it 7 degrees. And notice it puts that in for me. We're going to do this one here. Select, select, again less than 180 degree of curve, and it's 7 degree of curve, and then we can escape out of there. So now we have our alignment, everything's stationed properly. You can see the PI positions of the original baseline, and then you can see the new information. So we did this slightly different method this time, but it's equally just as good a method. So now what we're going to do is just do some really quick offsets on this alignment so that we can establish edge of pavement or right of way. So I'm just going to use the AutoCAD offset command, O, and I'm going to tell it 25 feet. And I'm going to just offset that way to that one, that like that. Okay. So at this point we've established all of the information that we need to be able to develop a profile. And again, it's very critical. You have to have a surface, you have to have a horizontal alignment. Now, it doesn't necessarily matter whether the surface comes first or the horizontal alignment, but those two do have to be in place before we go to the next step. So what we're going to be doing is generating a profile which comes in different types of profiles. There's what's called a profile view, which is your basically existing ground type profile. Sets up the grid for it, and then you have the design profile, which is going to be similar to the horizontal alignment kind of information. So you're going to have tangents, and you're going to have vertical curve information that we're going to be designing into this. So we have to first, once we have our alignment here, we have to sample the surface over which this is going to run to kind of generate where that profile is going to be, and it's tied to that. And then we're going to generate the actual picture. So I'm going to want to do a 50 scale. So notice down here your scale might be set to 40. If it's not, or if it is 40, let's go ahead and change it to 50, because the scale factor we have down here is usually affects text height and line type scale factors, but it will also affect the horizontal scale factor of the vertical profile. And so we can set some of these things up after the fact, but it's usually nice to kind of think about that ahead of time. So what we're going to do is go to the Create Design panel of the Home tab. Right here we see Profile. You also see Profile View. What we're going to do here is go to Profile. First thing we have to do is create what's called a surface profile. So what this is going to do is then require us to basically sample it and then generate it. So I'm going to go to Create Surface Profile, and this box is somewhat important because it's going to set up the parameters and how it's going to sample. First off, you have to establish the alignment you're using. Now, in a real big drawing or design file, you may have several alignments. So you would have alignments to choose from in this box. We only have one, so we're not going to change that. And anything that you select here will be reflected down here. And notice it knows the alignment start, alignment end, and you can sample lesser values. So I could sample from 100 to, let's say, 25 plus 0, 0, but I can't sample outside of this range. So I can change that, but not go outside of it. Then I have to select my surface, and again I could have multiple surface objects within this drawing file. So I've got to choose that. It doesn't come up automatically. So I'm going to click on that, add it, and you should notice it comes in down here. Also, sample offsets, you have the ability to sample left or right of the center line. So you may have a ditch section that's running on the right side, or something like maybe a back of curb that you want to sample. Those lines can then be included in the sample or the profile, and some designers use that. Let's look at this down here. It's telling us the name of what we're sampling. That would be the alignment. The type, we're looking at offsets if you have them. Start station, end station, minimum elevation, maximum elevation. So what we're going to do is go ahead and OK. And what we've done is created that. Now, we didn't draw it, and we could have at that time, but we didn't draw it. But what's happening now is we have sampled that. Okay. What we're going to do now is generate what we call a profile view. And the profile view, again, sets up the drawing to be able to create your design profile. So I'm going to go to this profile view area right here under profile section. And you can create profile view. You could create multiple profile views. You can project objects to profile view. We're going to very simply do this, create profile view, and it'll bring up this profile view wizard, if you will. And once you get used to this, you can choose to run through it or skip aspects of it, and you can actually just go right here and create initially. But I just want to run through some of these a little bit so you get a little bit used to it. First thing is you select the alignment. Once you select the alignment, you've sampled it, it'll automatically know how to generate the profile. We only have one in there, so we're not going to worry about that. Profile view styles. These are a little bit confusing, and there's a lot of different types of styles in there. If you can open this up, you'll see we've got first view, full grids, intermediates. I'm just going to use the one that's showing there right now, the major grids and HGPs. We'll come back and take a look at that a little bit later. So let's go to the next. And what this is asking me is what I want to use in terms of stations. So I've sampled from 0 to the end, but I do have the ability to change that. So I could go down here and say I want to maybe generate it from 500 to, say, again, 25 plus 0, 0. So I can change that if I like, but I'm going to leave that to automatic for our purposes. Go to next. This has to do with profile heights. Again, it's going to look at the minimum and maximum values, and it kind of adds that, it pads that a little bit. You can user specify that though if you like, because you may have pipe networks that are going to be below your minimum. So we could toggle that on and set it to any value. And the one thing to keep in mind with all of this, these things can be added after the fact. and sometimes it's good to just kind of let it roll through with what it's going to do and come back and edit it later. So we're going to go to next. This is telling it what it's basically going to draw for you or display. If you toggle this off, you won't get any of your information, so you typically want to leave that on. Types of profiles, those kind of things. So you do have some stuff that you do, and again, I usually don't do a whole lot with that. Let me just make sure. Okay, we're going to go to next. This is asking us what kind of band that we want to bring in, and the bands exist either in the top or the bottom, and they're a little bit confusing. So what we're going to do is not use any of those kinds of things right now. So I'm going to set that to no bands. Okay, so I don't want that. We're going to bring that in a little bit later. Go to next. Hatch options would be for things like cut and fill. We don't really have any of that, so we're not going to worry about that. So we're just going to go ahead and create a profile. Where you place the profile really isn't important. A lot of people in highway work, in particular, you work in what's called a plan and profile sheet. And so usually your plan's on top, profile's in the bottom. I could put that here, I could put that here, because I'm going to be in paper space when I do that anyway, so it really doesn't matter. I kind of like to work close to where the 0 line is, so I'm going to just kind of click it above that a little bit. And you should notice your profile now came in. And what we're looking at, if I can get my zoom to work, we're looking at what we call the profile view. And the profile view has stationing at the bottom, and it has elevations on the sides, and it has alignment information. And then there's our existing ground line, which again we can turn on and off. You might notice these blue lines here, and those are indicating where your PC and your PT is of your horizontal curve. And that's your PC and PT of your second one. So it'll show you information like that, which can also be turned on and off. These styles can be changed quite readily, and we'll take a look at that. So if I just click on this anywhere, it gives me the context sensitive editing tab, and there's all kinds of things I can deal with up here. Profile properties, geometry editors, but what we're looking at is our profile view. So we're going to go to the profile view style, and we're going to look first at the profile view properties, and then we're going to come back and look at the edit profile view styles. So what we see here is this box has a lot of information associated with it. The style that it's using, the stations that you're using, the elevation range, the profiles that it's showing, bands or no bands, and hatching. So this is pretty much what the wizard went through. One thing I do want to call your attention to, if we go back to profiles, this is considered a dynamic profile, which is important because if something changes in the surface or something changes in the horizontal alignment, it's dynamically linked to this profile, and this will reflect changes. Let's take a look. We're just going to go here and just see a little bit how these different types of views change. So I'm going to open this up. Let's go to what's called first view and apply that. I'll notice that there's quite a bit of difference now on this one. You can see it's very static. It doesn't have a whole lot of information to it. So again, as a designer, you can just play with a very crude grid and then get back into those other aspects later. So I'm going to show you another one that might be something that people use. And we're going to go to the edit profile view properties. Again, instead of first view, a lot of people are working in Land Desktop or have migrated from Land Desktop. So you have this Land Desktop profile view if you're used to that, which I was quite a bit used to that. You can notice that that shows up, kind of shows you how that works. Okay, but we're going to go back ultimately to what we had started with. So I just want to take that back to my major grids and HGP, apply that, okay that, and that shows me that.